Welcome again, everyone, to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. We're really glad you're here. We have quite a few people here, and that's exciting. We have 19 zoomed in, 19 squares, and we have quite a few here, maybe, I don't know, maybe 19? How many? 16. Awesome. Well, I'm doing something this evening for the talk that I've never done. And that is I've borrowed one of my old talks. It was like, it's almost the first day of summer. I can do that. Well, it turns out in the last 3 years, this was from 3 years ago, the Dharma hasn't changed much. Never mind 2,600 years. So I thought it was appropriate. I changed a lot, so you may or may not recognize. So we're all familiar with this idea of happiness being found through getting lost in an activity or in service to others, gardening, music, just sort of being in direct experience with some task or some concentration where you forget yourself. And it's joyful. It's a feeling of real ease and peace. And this is part of the Buddha's teaching. And we're going to touch on this teaching of non-self tonight, which is kind of a biggie. The first time I heard the teaching of non-self, I was uncomfortable. Wait a minute. No. You don't know me. There's a real self going on here. Trust me. You should see me trying to meditate. So there's some wonderful guidance that the Buddha offers us toward lightening up this grip that we have on personalizing and being ego-centered. And of course, we can't all just garden for a living, and we have to do. So there's a conventional world that we live in where we all have names and we have personalities and we present ourselves to each other and we interact. And we need rules and laws and. And then there's the ultimate reality where we can really work with letting go of so much that causes us suffering. And a lot of that is in the ways that we self. It's a verb. Okay. So less selfing and more joy is a match. So this talk, this concept by the Buddha, I'm calling for this talk the joy shadow. It's what becomes our companion, this joy shadow. Look behind you. When we meet the moments of our lives, the ups and downs, with direct, selfless knowing. So when we're absorbed in something directly. So we'll look at how the selflessness in mindfulness practice results in more peace and contentment in our lives. So these are the words of the Buddha from the Dhammapada, which are sayings, a collection of sayings that the Buddha shared. In fact, I'm going to read it twice so you can get it. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a person thinks or acts with a selfless thought, joy follows them as a shadow that never leaves them. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. If a person thinks or acts with a selfless thought, joy follows them as a shadow that never leaves them. So a shadow that never leaves us, the joy shadow, sounds a little bit like a man's best friend, a puppy, a woman's best friend. So we'll see about that. So 3 years ago, when I wrote this, I went to the beach with my family, and my son and daughter-in-law brought their 9-month-old, 90-pound puppy named Charles. He had a lot to do with what went on that week. And it turns out that Charles is really a Dharma teacher. And I'm going to tell you some of the wisdom from Charles. So that week, the conditions were perfect for writing a Dharma talk. So there were 5 of us, 3 adult children and 2 actual adults. So the Dharma talk was going to be about how to live with more harmony and peace. Okay. And after lots of practice, I was kind of ready for the challenge, and it was a challenge. So this concept now in Buddhism, that our thoughts, words, and actions create our lives internally and with others. How we speak and act toward others is a direct response to how we think. And guess what? We can cultivate a more kind, loving, kind of inner climate that shows up in our relationships. So it's a gradual training. That's the good news. No judging what your thoughts might be of late. So we can ask ourselves, am I creating a life of peace and harmony, or conflict and division? And if this is a continuum, you can say, where am I today? Where, we can start to look more closely. We all want to have joy follow us as a shadow that never leaves us, right? Is there anybody who think we're all on board with that? Mm-hmm. And to create more joy in our relationships. And part of that is seeing that, like me, other people have the same kind of mind, the same challenges, difficulties in life. We're getting things we don't want. We're not getting some of the things we want. We're all in the same game of aging, illness, and guess what comes at the end? You all know about that, right? Death. Yeah. So we're all in this. Worry about loved ones, anxiety of all kinds of stripes. But we know that just like me, all other people are carrying this, and they want to be happy the way I want to be happy. So don't we all want to be like the puppy and dig and dig and dig in the sand, and with total abandon and pure joy for no reason, without any distractions? I do. So, but we're not like a puppy, turns out, excited to see and meet every person and just be all in for everything. So now, whether you're someone who doesn't like people, like, do you know people who say, like, I have somebody in my life who says, I don't like people. It's interesting. Or who generally does, if you generally like people, you still see that people can be difficult and challenging to deal with. Now, not us, other people, right? I mean, not me. Okay, even to just tolerate them, never mind loving kindness and compassion, we can fail quite a bit, but we want to do better. We want to have kind thoughts and compassionate thoughts and joy kind of in our wake. So years ago, I learned from Ayya Sudama, our local Buddhist nun, that when we're critical of others, judging them, we hurt ourselves. We rob ourselves of peace of mind. So no joy shadow to be found. When she told me she was coming to hear a Dharma talk I was giving, I said, oh dear, I hope you won't be critical if I get something wrong or don't explain something well. She said, I would never do that. You know the Dhamma, and anyway, if I judge you, I'm only hurting myself. Wow, that stuck with me. Really did. When we catch critical thoughts arising toward ourselves often, not just others, ourselves, or another, we can observe the hurt in ourselves and hold that hurt as we would a child who scraped her knee. This tender response brings this joy shadow. We cannot prevent negative thoughts. Newsflash. I don't have to tell you guys, but you just meditated. Unless you just were totally concentrated on the breath the whole time. Maybe you were. Thoughts arise, all kinds, okay, tinged with every kind of emotion. Okay, we can't stop the bad ones and only let in the good ones. They arrive like unannounced guests, right? How we respond is the key. Not what arises, but how we meet it. Regular meditation imbues our day with more presence of mind and less reaction. Here is an understatement. Awareness enhances the chances for a kind response. If we're aware, our chances of meeting it in a kind way, whether it's toward ourselves or others, goes way up. So that's why we meditate, so that we can wake up our awareness. Selfing is a habit. It's a way we think will protect us, creating the right story that makes us feel safe. It doesn't work though. It complicates our minds, our hearts, and separates us from others. Because, you know, we're like the main character in our story, and other people have parts in it too that we make up. So it separates us from our truth. Okay. Bhikkhu Bodhi writes, the Buddha says, the ultimate truth of things is directly visible. It is always available to us, the truth of our direct experience. This truth, in order to become liberating, has to be known directly. So the uncomfortable emotions, without the story, the fears, the worries, we need to befriend them. We need to become intimate with them. That's what makes us free. And it's not about me. It's about this moment arising now, this emotion. It's like a cloud if we don't make it into a scenario. Directly experiencing the pain of negative thoughts, we may use noting as a tool. This is, now I'm getting practical as a technique, noting, to move our attention from the story with me as the main character to the present moment experience, the here and now. So this body breathing, noting what is true with impartiality. That's a word. That's another word really for mindfulness. I know that word, mindfulness. Awareness, mindful awareness. So we don't choose what arises. It's selfless when we're just meeting, oh, now this. It's a selfless experience. We can bring it to the body, feel the sensation of the breath, note the heartbeat, note sound, thinking back to the breath, note in, out with the breath. This is training. And we might feel moments of unease, almost like free falling, because that's what one teacher calls the death rattle of the ego. Wait a minute, how can we just know the breath, but I'm want to be in charge. I'm here, So in this way, as we get more faith with the process, with the training, we become more familiar with this selfless practice. And then we notice more selfless thinking and selfless acts become more habitual, more the habit. So the goal is not to change you. That's important, or to become a different kind of person. This is the way of the thinking mind. The goal is to know directly the futility, feel the pain of the critical, judging, ego-centered mind that creates separation. So, of course, each of us at the beach had our own ideas of how to train the puppy, right? When to hold him tight and when to let him run. And each time I kept my thoughts of how the young people should care for their puppy, kept it to myself, I felt happy. It took some restraint. It took some, let them train their puppy, I felt happy. Sometimes the joy shadow arises when we don't speak or act. We just allow. So the puppy always showed us the way to full out living life full out. And I had thoughts, how could I be more like Charles the puppy? For sure. Be a love machine, explore everywhere and everything, and relish each moment full out until it's nap. For sure. My teacher, Terania, shared her meditation practice with me. She said, first step, don't hate it. She could have said, be more like a puppy. When I don't hate it and see my discomfort is born of my own irritation, when under these conditions, this pattern arises, when I let the mind wander, when I'm caught up in some scenario, when I am selfing and personalizing, discomfort, stress arises. I can see this pattern and I can open my heart to accept that this is a karmic pattern. Okay, I can, with some level of impartiality, the conditions in my heart can change and do change day to day. She said, it's all investigation practice. She said, you directly experience and investigate what's arising now. She said, it's a rude awakening to realize if I was learning anything, it was from observing directly and getting more aware of how incredibly screwed up my mind is. That's what she said, and I could relate to it. To grow on the path, she said, it's more seeing the pain you're in. And to notice when you don't do that, the negative commentary of the ego mind, the pleasure that's also the teacher. When you don't do that, the pleasure is the teacher. She said it more succinctly than I thought possible. She said, the more I wake up to how ignorant I am, the happier I am. That's fair. So mindfulness, let's remember, is not a way to get to peace or to get rid of what we don't want, get rid of how we don't want to be. It is awareness that in and of itself teaches, in and of itself heals. We first have to get real with what's happening in our mind. We have to own the particular karmic patterns we see. When we get some quiet in the mind, we can start to see them. Not running away, but being with the mind's characters who show up. Judger, Judgy Pants. Remember her and him? Mean guy, mean gal. Scaredy cat. Gimme, gimme, gimme gal, or gimme, gimme, gimme guy. And oh, this one, the wise fault finder. Oh, all these characters show up. She said, okay, so Stephen Levine, we always like Stephen Levine. He says, if we listen to our hearts and watch our actions, we learn from ourselves. We learn where we have work to do. There's no reality to create. There's only a reality to tune into. So we will do well to lighten up. Can you feel the joy shadow when you can laugh at yourself? A Dharma buddy of mine watches for his knucklehead tendencies. He sees his mental habits and names it. There's the knucklehead. He ends up chuckling a lot. So the whole practice and path is a gradual one. Learning to laugh at the ego mind's commentary is a wonderful thing. My husband is helpful with this. On this vacation, I came across a quote by Ram Dass and shared it with him. And had maybe a little too much eagerness in my voice. Honey, listen to this quote. I can do nothing for you but work on myself. You can do nothing for me but work on yourself. Might have been where I put the emphasis. But he paused a moment, then said, well, you better get right on it then. You better get busy. You better put in some overtime. So I think that might be enough. If we could bark like crazy or howl with abandon, we'd feel better, wouldn't we? The key to waking up to our karmic conditioning is to witness what's arising in us without judgment. And I think I'll stop there, but I gotta have one last mention of Charles. None of us, we all had a wonderful time, but none of us had the ecstatic time the puppy Charles had. And I did notice he was not doing selfie. Thank you all for listening.